Thank you for joining us for this session on the evolving insight needs of Chief Marketing Officers. I'm delighted to be joined by Jane Stiller, CMO at ITV, for this conversation. Now, Jane heads up all aspects of marketing at ITV, from strategy to creative to publicity and media. And in addition to her marketing remit, as Neil has hinted at, the insight team also report into Jane. And Jane, I'm particularly looking forward to hearing your views on collaboration and how research partners and clients can work more closely together. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited to be here. Sadly, didn't have a glass of champagne, or I might have more interesting things to say. So
there's always time afterwards.
Exactly. I'll celebrate afterwards.
Before we kick off properly, I would like to remind the audience that we have Slido available, so please feel free to pop in your questions there for Jane, and we'll look to address them towards the end of the session. Okay, Jane, let's kick off. I'd like to begin with your perspective on the topic. So, as CMO at one of the UK's biggest broadcasters, I imagine that your challenges are multiple and varied. Could you start by giving us a sense of what your insight needs look like from a marketing perspective?
Well, I think first of all, to Neil's point, I'm lucky because I've obviously got the best insight team in the business. So tick, there you go. No need to worry anymore, Neil. But no, I think it's really interesting because I think the needs, I guess, of a marketing function are very similar to the needs of a business. And, ultimately most businesses are trying to drive growth, and therefore you're trying to understand what are the insights that help you make better decisions, that help you drive business growth. And I do think over the past couple of years, I think I have seen marketing, but also the insights function as part of marketing, or not part of marketing, use their knowledge to help drive the business more. And actually interesting at ITV, Neil and I have just been doing a lot of work around what's our vision for the insights team. And we threw around a lot of language around supporting the business, collaborating and consulting and stuff. And we cut all of that and we said, do you know what, we want to lead the business to its best possible future. And actually we really thought lead's really important, but also the idea of future is really important. I feel that the insights team understanding the customer, or the viewer in our case, better than anyone else in the organisation should enable us to demonstrate what a profitable and growing future could look like. So I do think there's a lot of responsibility actually, both from the insights function and also on marketing, to be able to deliver that strategically for the business in a way that they listen to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you see those needs evolving? Is it really about that leadership piece, so kind of building that leadership function?
I think it's quite a big shift, isn't it? And we noticed it in, before broadcasting, I worked in retail. And I think in retail, the insights team were very integral to the kind of trading process and, the understanding of how the business worked, how stores were performing last week. And that meant that they were very integral to the kind of fundamentals of the business. Before that, I worked in consumer goods. And again, the insight team, because marketing is kind of the growth driver of a consumer goods business, and insights is so embedded in knowing how to deliver great marketing to drive growth. Again, insights was kind of super embedded within the heart of the business. And I think that's the bit that is getting, I think as growth becomes harder, the economy, particularly in the UK, is not, as we all know, not growing where we would want it to be in any sector at the moment. So I think then the pressure, I guess, on a team who help stakeholders all over the business make better decisions becomes even greater, because that growth's hard to come by. The pressure is, intense for senior execs, and therefore they need those supportive partners who can help them or lead them, like my previous language, to define what the future of that business is going to look like. So I do think the needs are similar in a lot of ways, but I think the pressure is probably greater than it's ever been. And I think that comes on to, obviously, from the kind of supply side, or demand side and supply side, the demand is greater. But I also think from the supply side, there are challenges within our industry, because obviously just the quantity of methodologies that you can use seems to have gone through the roof. The ability to explain that in clear and concise ways to people who've got no idea what data science is, it's harder, I think, than it's ever been to supply great insights, and also the demand for great insight has gone up. So I think it's quite a difficult time, but also a really exciting time, because there's loads of opportunity and people want to hear what we've got to say. It's just, how do you do it in a way that those people are going to listen to?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And what qualities do you look for in an insight partner?
Well, obviously. No, I do think that communication thing is really important. And actually, we've been talking a lot about this. It's the quality of the work that you do that is really important. But I think, we've talked a lot about the decisions that the business are trying to make and trying to be really clear on the decision that is going to be driven as a result of the work that we're doing. Mm-hmm. And so that helps then define the scope of the project, helps define kind of what's in and what's out, what's nice to have and what's essential. And then knowing who the decision maker is and how that decision is going to be made, I think then comes down to how we deliver the insight. So, whereas before maybe we might have done a debrief with 2 or 3 people in the room, we're talking about how can we do more immersive debriefs and, spend a half day or a whole day and be, I guess, more demanding of our senior team's time, because actually to do it well and to do it in a way that is going to enable them to make that decision, we need the space to be able to do that and we need the time. So I think a lot of it is not only in doing good work, but I think a lot of it is in the delivery of the work. So I think in that sense, looking for a team or partners who can partner with the business really effectively, understand their needs, number one. Number 2, understand who is the decision maker and how are they going to make this decision. Mm-hmm. And then number 3, be able to package the work, clearly do good work, but that kind of is a given. That's like a hygiene factor, that the work's good, the methodologies are sound, the insight, the nuggets are there, but then a team who can deliver that in a way that enables that decision maker to make a better decision, I think is the bit that I would look for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thank you. And at one of the presentations earlier, we had Rita and Bara Mundry from Nestle was talking about different types of partnerships that clients have with agencies. So arm's length, a partnership approach, and strategic alliance. So if there's any agencies in the room who are looking to kind of deepen their relationship with the client towards that strategic alliance piece, would you have any advice for them in going about that?
I mean, this is going to be a controversial opinion, but it's annoying, isn't it? And most people know when you're being pestered by people, it's annoying. So I think, number 1, just don't pester people because it's really irritating. But I do think on that, and it kind of is linked to the same thing, just be helpful, and I think that does come down to understanding the business's needs, and I know you can't be embedded in every single business, but it's interesting, we had our results last week. If you read those results carefully, there's so much information about what we need in those results. And so if you're a partner working with ITV, take the time, care enough to read our results, understand the context of the market that we're sitting in, understand the pressures that undoubtedly we are under, and then, make your offering tailored and relevant to us, because the random stuff is quite frustrating, and I think it puts you off more than it turns you on to working with someone. I think in terms of the different types of relationships as well, I'd say, and again, it kind of comes back a little bit to the pestering point. Sometimes it's fine to have a transactional relationship. It doesn't need to be more than that. So, again, something I really hate is people talking constantly, I want to deepen the relationship. I just don't need you for more than this. I just need you to do this one thing really well, And actually, do you know what? I'd pay more for that thing to be done really well for you not to talk to me but it's true. It's one small slice of the job that everyone's got a really busy job. So if it's one small slice of it, and you've got a supplier who does it really well and doesn't bother you, and just delivers, that's a dream. Mm-hmm. Then if you've got a supplier, like I said, that does that and then really understands the context of your business and can really demonstrate they've got this other thing that's super valuable to meet this need that they know you have, and they deliver it in a collaborative and useful way, brilliant. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be a transactional supplier. I understand it is if you're the supplier and it's part of your P&L and you're the sales manager who's got to grow that bit of business. I get it. That's not great. But I think again, it's kind of know your moment, know your time, and like I said, I think really understand the business, which is hard when you're working across multiple clients. Yeah. It's hard to understand a business as well as obviously the people internally will. But there are ways and means of doing it.
Yeah. So the realities of day-to-day sometimes makes it more transactional.
I think so, but again, I think if you've got a really good partnership and you trust them, that and again, it's the trust, isn't it? It's the trust that they understand the business and not only that the quality of work that will be good, but like I talked about before, that it will be delivered in a way that will will meet your stakeholders' needs.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing, you know, often you're putting people in front of stakeholders that are important to you internally. So, you know, if I use an example at ITV, you know, the wonderful woman who commissions our drama, who commissioned Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, so fantastic, amazing woman, doesn't really have a laptop, like doesn't really use a laptop, doesn't. So again, and doesn't really believe in research, traditional research. She thinks her instincts are you know, are more important. And so actually the way that you would present to her, you know, we know what's going to resonate with her and what isn't. And actually she really needs a lot of the insight that we can bring, but it's how we do that that makes the biggest difference. And so I think it's, again, understanding those nuances of the internal stakeholders and bearing in mind that your internal insights team, if you're an agency, you know, they're sticking their neck on the line to back you to say, you know, this is the person that I've chosen, that I'm paying, that I trust. And therefore, you know, that delivering has got a big impact on that insights team's internal reputation. And, you know, those things are really important.
And you've touched on the internal insights team. How can, you know, we've got lots of agencies in the room as well, and I think agencies will probably be looking to figure out how they can stand out to marketers. How do you think agencies and insight teams can work more collaboratively?
Well, we were talking about this before. I was saying it's interesting. I think as a marketeer by trade, I would always just go to my internal insights team. I wouldn't even really think about the network of agencies that they work with to be able to deliver the insight to me. It's only really since I've also started working with Neil in the insights function that I've kind of realised the massive network of support that team, you know, gets to be able to deliver the work that we do internally. So I think that's probably, I don't know if that's unique to me, but I think as an agency, you know, don't assume that your marketing team know who you are because it will go through often an in-house team, and that in-house team might have an interest in you knowing who the agency is, or they might have an interest in you not knowing who the agency is, and both might be fine, but I think it is important to be aware that A, they might not know, and I guess second to the point, in the nice possible way, they probably don't care that much. They just want the information, as I said before, delivered in an impactful way that helps them make a better decision so that they can drive value for the business. So I think being really mindful of the need of that internal team, I think, is quite important. And then I think, you know, I've talked about it at length before, but I think the understanding of the business and I guess how you use the internal insights team to understand the context of the business, I think, is important. And then I think, it's hard, isn't it? But it's understanding those internal dynamics and politics. Does the marketing function really trust their in-house insights team? Do they not? If they don't, you know, are there different routes in? Are there ways that you can, you know, cut out the insights team, go direct to marketing? You know, there's lots of different ways. You know, we see it all the time. You know, there's lots of different ways into a business, isn't it? But it's understanding the politics of that business to know which is going to generate the best result for you as an agency.
Again, it speaks to just really understanding your client and just understanding their challenges.
I think it is. And also, you know, personal recommendations go a long way, don't they? You know, people have a personal network, and if you know, often if we need something done or we've got a problem, we will reach out to people we already know and say, we're trying to do this. Do you know an agency that's done it for you? Or do you know, if you've got someone you trust? And that makes a big difference.
Just thinking more about the types of sources that marketers are looking for in terms of data sources. So what kind of blend of insight are you really looking for?
So we've talked a lot about this recently, actually, because we just merged actually our research team with our data science and our analytics team, so to create the insights group, which is both, you know, mixed methodologies. And actually one of the bits we talked a lot about as part of that is kind of, I guess, curated insight versus automated insight, and whether they're the right terms. We're kind of not sure what the right terms are, but the idea of kind of, in its basic terms, curated insight being PowerPoint slides, you know, and you know, lots of different methodologies coming together to tell a story, to deliver nuggets of insight that help a business stakeholder make different decisions. Better decisions, and then also the world of automated insight, and you know, particularly with marketing, this is a big thing. You know, we have coded segmentations that drive personalization engines that, you know, no one day to day is looking at a PowerPoint slide and then making a decision based on. The algorithm runs. We hope that we've done the data science well enough that it's a good algorithm and it's delivering our CRM, it's delivering our paid campaigns. You know, it links to the personalization engine and recommendations engine that we have for our ITVX product. So I think that kind of curated versus automated, again, whether it's the right language, I don't know, but it helps us think of, I guess, the myriad versions of insight that there now can be. I think when you've got first-party data, you've got third-party, second-party data, you've also got, you know, a lot of your qualitative data, and all of those things are important, but they're important for different use cases. And so for us, you know, as we've blended these two teams together, it's, you know, we're not perfect by any means, but I think it's trying to understand what are the use cases and how much can we use the talent that we've got in-house to map against those things and put combinations of different skill sets together to create more interesting results. So to your point, what are the skill sets? I mean, there's a lot of skill sets, and I think it's hard. I genuinely do think it's harder than ever, particularly in businesses where you've got so much first-party data. You know, we have 40 million registered accounts for ITVX, so you've got a massive wealth of first-party data. You've got, you know, in our world, our bar panel. You've then got, you know, all of the kind of qual and quant research you can do. You've then got a load of, you know, third-party data from our platforms or from our advertisers. You know, so there's so much that you could do. And in that sense, I also think, you know, we've done a lot of work on this, prioritization makes such a big difference as well. So, you know, what are the biggest things? What are the decisions that are going to be made? How do you prioritize accordingly? And that in a world where there's so much data, so much information, so many demands of the team is the, you know, the art of a great insights leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we just rewind a little bit and talk a little bit more about the work you've been doing to integrate data science and analytics within the Insight team? How has that work informed your marketing remit, and what have been the challenges of that?
It's been good so far. I think, you know, we felt like we felt like it needed to come together, and that we had great people in data and analytics, and we had great people in research, but the power of them together could be much stronger. And I think, like I said, within marketing specifically, I think what it's enabled us to do is kind of go end to end. So if I look at segmentation, for example, you know, we used to be able to do macro segmentations, but then, you know, we'd never be able to map it to our first-party data. So then we'd have a separate kind of first-party data segmentation, which was kind of trying to replicate some of the stuff. So it just kind of was always a bit of a mess. Whereas now, you know, we have a broad-scale kind of market segmentation, but then we've also got, you know, a first-party data segmentation that is built from the same cues. We're then able to build, you know, recommendations engines, like I said, off the bottom of that, into our kind of targeted communications that aren't the same as the top segmentation, but they speak to it, and you know, there is an understanding of how it moves through the funnel, I guess. So I think those mixed skill sets have enabled us to create capability for, you know, big above the line campaigns, but right through to targeted campaigns that we probably couldn't do before. I also think there's been a lot of, you know, the understanding of our viewers in our case has changed quite a lot, because before we might just be looking at panel data for, you know, an understanding of our viewers, which we still look at loads and it's still really helpful, but now we can also look at our first party data and understand what's going on there. And whereas before, those two things would have happened in two separate teams. So, you know, you'd have received kind of two different reports of what's happening, you know, within your first party data, and then what's happening with your panel data. And it was like, this is kind of annoying, you know. And so now again, you know, the team will work together and deliver a holistic view of what's going on with viewers, which obviously for me is much more useful, because it means that I can make trade-offs and decisions about the whole portfolio rather than just these individual slices. So, you know, we've still got a long way to go, but I think already we're seeing the benefit. And I think we're also, you know, the insights team at ITV, there is a team that focuses on marketing, but even though it's the whole group sits within marketing, you know, I often say for me it should sit on the board and have its own, you know, its own space, because I think, you know, it supports our entire business. You know, it supports, you know, our PLC board, it supports our management board, it supports, you know, our commercial team, our content team. You know, there are so many things that wouldn't be the same about our business if you didn't have a strong insights function. So even though there's been a lot of change within marketing, that change has been really holistic across the business. And I think that's the sign, I think, of a great team, where they're having genuine impact on decisions across, that breadth of decision making, I guess.
Horizontal thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And then a big bit for us has been, how do you then, try and get the synergies. So, I think, we did a big exercise where we just put on the table everything that everyone was working on. It was quite daunting. But then as part of that, realised actually in our commercial insights team, they were doing a project that was really similar to what we were doing in the content insights team, actually just trying to get, again, those synergies, which, in a world where most clients are looking at how do you drive efficiencies, how do you do more for less, actually finding those synergies is so important internally.
And you've touched on doing more with less. Obviously, many people at the conference can probably relate to, budgets are being reduced for market research, projects being put on hold. How can insights partners collaborate well in that space with their clients when they're under more pressure?
I think, again, we talked about it, the principle's the same, understanding what the business needs, and being really clear about it. And also, I think, helping them prioritise, so helping them prioritise, I think, is quite a big thing. And then, I know this is not popular, but, we talk about it a lot. There tends to be a lot of good stuff that has already been done. And I do think there's value in just someone who knows what has already been done, rehashing the stuff that has already been done, but delivering it in a new and different way. So we've been looking at viewers for a million years. There are insights about viewers. We're doing a project at the moment around, what are the need states of viewing? And they're just really realistically not going to have changed from probably something we did 5 years ago. But of course, we're a few of us are new in role. We feel like it's, we've had this brainchild of, it's nothing, not existed before, and we've got this idea that, no one's had before. But actually, the reality is if someone was, actually being really challenging to me, they could easily say, we did that 5 years ago, here it is. And I'd say, oh, well, that's slides from 5 years ago. If they said to me, I'm going to do a workshop for you for 2 hours, and I never even knew it was 5 years old, and it just was brought to life to me in a new and exciting way, great, and you can charge me for the workshop, but you don't need to charge me for the work that was done 5 years ago. So I guess there's, different ways of doing it, and which is why I think, like I said, the delivery of the stuff is so important. Yes, the doing of the stuff is important, but the delivery of it, there's value in the delivery, and I don't know if we always put a price tag on the delivery of it as much as we do the doing of it.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of conversation today about the value of storytelling in insight, and kind of making sure that story gets across. You've talked a lot about the kind of complexity of data sources now, with first-party data, and that's obviously a challenge and an opportunity for marketers across the board. How has that changed dynamic when it comes to insight partners in terms of how marketers work with their partners?
I think it's changed a lot, and I think it's getting better. I feel like even a few years ago, there was definitely a kind of not hierarchy, that's the wrong word, a kind of a divide, I guess, between what felt like the kind of new school and the old school. And this was the same in marketing as well. It was like people who were kind of native digital marketeers versus people who, were kind of classically trained within marketing. And the reality is you need all of those things, and you need, all of those skill sets to deliver well-rounded, effective, growth-driving marketing campaigns. So it's kind of like the divide is a abstract thing. You need it all. And I guess in that sense, you need it all when it comes to your insight partners to help deliver those types of campaigns. So, as I talked about in the segmentation example earlier, you need the big picture thinking. You need trends analysis. You need, big, mind-bending stuff that helps you think about what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years. You also need, as I talked about earlier, the automated insight that is churning out your CRM campaigns every day and is making them incrementally better, that's A/B testing them, that's understanding whether that creative worked better than that creative, and making a marginal gain every single day within those, within those channels. So you kind of need both, and that's hard because we're also trying to do both with often less resources, and that's really hard, which comes back to the prioritization point. If you can only do so much, I guess it's working with your insights teams, your insights agencies to understand what's going to have the biggest bang for my buck, and if I if I can only do so much, if I could get to 80% in this area, is 80% good enough? And I'd say most of the time it is.
Yeah. I'm keeping an eye on the ever-ticking red clock. I can't believe it's gone so quickly. We have lots of questions that have come in on Slido, so I want to leave enough time to get to those. But I also want to ask you one last question from me, which is around generative AI, because it wouldn't be an Insight conference this year without mention of that. Are there ways in which AI, particularly generative AI, could boost the partnerships between CMOs and their Insight teams, either internal partners or external partners?
Gen AI. Yes, there are. Gen AI is interesting, isn't it? Because there's obviously lots of, and I'm sure you talked about it loads today, productivity gains. I think for us creatively, it's very interesting. What can you do creatively within that space? Obviously, as a broadcaster, we make a lot of our own content through ITV Studios. So the increase of audio-visual generative AI is very interesting for us as a space. I think from an insights point of view, I think obviously there's things around, we call ourselves sometimes the hotline because, every exec in the business will phone Neil and say, what happened, this number, that number, what's going on. And I do think there's a role for, and these things already exist, generative AI to help with some of that firefighting and just, incoming, inbound that comes to a lot of insights teams where people like me who are too lazy to look at a report, too lazy to open an email and just want, a hotline. I think there probably is, some value in that. I think there's also quite a bit of interesting stuff around how can you use generative to, create more dynamic segmentations that we talked about earlier. Again, I've not seen it done really well yet, so I think there's a lot of excitement. I don't think it's there yet.
Yep.
And I think as part of this, again, someone used a good quote to me once of you won't lose your job to generative AI, you'll lose your job to someone who knows how to use generative AI, which I think is quite interesting in this space because I think there are loads of use cases. I don't think it's going to put insights teams out of business because the delivery side that I've talked about so much is so important, but I think it's how do we use it to deliver things, productivity gains and efficiency gains that enable us to focus on that delivery part even more than we did previously.
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to some audience questions. So we have one from Mark. Could marketing thrive without any access to research?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I think it probably could. It depends. I've gone from consumer goods where you couldn't even put an ad out until it had been pre-tested, and you could only put it on air if it had passed pre-testing. So you spend years just making, pretend ads, spending a fortune, testing them back in the day in Ipsos testing where I was, and then they'd never go out and you're just like, well, what have I done for 3 years of my life? Whereas, we make at ITV 200 campaigns a year and we hardly test any of them. And, we're doing all right. So you probably could. Whether it's a good way of doing marketing, I would say probably not. I think if I was to focus on the bit that is the most useful, it has to be the understanding of your viewer or your customer. And that is, for me, the strategic advantage of a marketing team. And I think without that, you lose your seat at the board table, you lose your kind of power in the organisation, because that is the bit that you should be able to deliver to the board, which generates better decision making, is your understanding of the customer, and you can't do that without research.
We also have a question about delivery. So how bespoke do deliverables need to be regarding the design of the deck? So does it impact how you perceive the work, or is that not important? Is it more about the insights for you?
Well, it's interesting because I would say, why do we start with a deck in the first place? One of the bits actually we're talking about as a marketing team, we're just spending hours at the moment polishing slides. I'm like, this is just madness. And this is for internal presentations. I'm like, why are we spending so much time on slides to just present to someone who sits 3 desks away from us? I was like, this is insanity. So I would say to the question, why start with a deck? And I guess that leads to my opinion of, I don't think the aesthetics of the deck matter as much as the insight, but I think it's how can we be more creative with the way that we deliver the insight, and also I think more demanding of your client's time. If they say, I've only got a half an hour slot and it really genuinely can't be delivered within a half an hour slot, don't accept it.
Yeah. And we covered a lot today on advice, kind of key takeaways, but I guess what would be your number one piece of advice for an insight team or an agency in looking to be more collaborative with marketers?
I think, and I haven't talked about this a lot, but I think there is something around being really clear on what your offering is, be that as an insights function or as a partner, because I think the world of insights can mean a lot of different things to different people, and I think being clear on what your proposition is, to use marketing terms, what you do, what you don't do, what you do really well, what you'll do if you really have to but isn't your core skill set, and what are the things that are completely out of scope. And I think that goes for in-house teams as well as external agencies as well, because I think if you're really clear on what the proposition is, it's the same as a marketing campaign, isn't it? If you're really clear on what you're buying, what the proposition is, it makes the whole process much more simple. So I do think there's an art in, was it Ernest Hemingway says, I'd have written a short letter if I'd had more time. It's like there is an art of being really clear about what you do and being really clear about the value that you add. And I think spending time on that, be that internal or external, is really critical.
Okay, we are out of time, but yep, that clarity, the storytelling and understanding of the client, that's all come through. So thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.